To be down here in Fullerton. You're so lucky to have Sharon Quirk-Silva as your representative.
No.
She's a tireless fighter. She is somebody who is working every day to make sure this community is stronger and better. We've worked on a number of issues together this year. The Chancellor, thank you, Chancellor, for swinging by today. Talked about economic development, really job creation. That's something that she is very, very focused on with her committee, with all of her legislation, but really as she interfaces with our budget. Homelessness has been a big issue. More recently in Orange County, as you know, in San Francisco, we've been grappling with homelessness probably for decades. We have about almost 8,000 homeless people on the street, and it's a very challenging sight, I'll tell you, because being a fairly wealthy city/county and being in the 5th largest economy in the world, which California is now, we overtook Great Britain, it's very challenging to see people on the street. And I know that that's become a big issue down here in Orange County. It's something that we were very proud to work on. We were able to get $500 million of homelessness funding into the state budget for one-time homelessness funding, for emergency shelters, for rental assistance. But it's a short-term solution to try to get us to a longer-term solution. And one of those longer-term solutions is obviously really around building housing. We talked about housing as a particular issue. There's a housing bond on the ballot this November. This is something that we have not done. We really haven't built enough housing for the demand, for the population. We've added a lot of jobs to continue to bring people into California. We continue to be a very attractive place to live, but we frankly haven't built enough housing for our children or our grandchildren or really all generations. So that's why you see these skyrocketing prices everywhere. Like neighborhoods that didn't really see price increases. When Sharon and I first went to Sacramento in 2012, it was sort of at the bottom, at the very end of that recession. Housing was pretty cheap, and especially relative to the Bay Area, I'm sure relative to Orange County. But now you can see almost 6 years later, housing's starting to skyrocket, even in Sacramento, even in the Central Valley. I always kind of use this as a question. Can anybody tell me highest rent growth in the city? Highest rent growth in the state. What city had the highest rent growth in the state?
San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Merced.
Close. You're getting warm.
Modesto.
Keep going north.
Stockton.
Stockton.
Didn't that city just go bankrupt though?
Stockton, which has had its challenges economically.
Bankruptcy.
And very difficult situation. What's interesting is that they've had the highest rent, partly because people are moving out from the Bay Area, that they're really in the process of starting to live in Stockton and then commute into the Bay Area for work. Yeah, Wow was right. It's like a 2-hour commute. I mean, with traffic, all of that, it's a long drive. I mean, I guess it's like driving from Palm Springs into here, you got the same level of distance. Some of the things that I was really proud to work with on Sharon, a lot of the community projects. We worked on together a project at Los Alamitos. There's $1.7 million appropriation where we expanded the Star-based youth program. And really what that does is provide great training for folks from LA, Orange, San Bernardino. And it's a real opportunity to provide good job placement, job growth programs. It's a really great program. The Chancellor mentioned the $1 million that we got for the Fullerton College welding program. This is part of an effort that we were really looking at across the state to really help community colleges who are doing economic development. We talk about this divide between the economy that is just growing at leaps and bounds. They can't hire enough people. And, you go to a lot of these companies, they have job listings, and it seems like they go on forever. And then you look at other parts of the state where you continue to have higher unemployment than say Orange County or LA, and you figure out what is this disconnect? How do we get those folks ready for this economy that's here? And how do we make that connection?
I think the regulatory burden needs to be dealt with.
Like there's, 2 states. Where we feel like at times there are 2 states. So we really want to make sure that we're one state, we are really building everyone for that new economy, that we aren't leaving people behind. So that was part of our effort, to really have economic development dollars deployed at different community colleges. Because, the community colleges, to me, the community colleges are the saving grace for our higher ed system. Because the community colleges aren't where you go when you're 18. The community colleges are where you go when you're 28, when you're 38, when you're 48, when you're 58, even when you're 70. The community colleges are really this place that is the glue for our community. Because if you can't afford some, $30,000 computer class, to get trained for a year, it's like a $30,000. We have these schools, they'll train you to be a coder. You pay $30,000 a year, and a year later you got a job as a coder. Well, if you can't afford that, you don't have that kind of money, or don't want to take the kind of loan out, you can start here at the community college campus, and everywhere around the state. That is the first entry point to go when you want to change your life. When you decide, hey, I'm tired of this career, I want to go into this next career. Like, I'm tired of being in the culinary industry, I want to go into the tech industry. Or I'm tired of being in the tech industry, and I want to go be in the restaurant business. So it's such an important place to be. It is absolutely incredible. Some of the other things that we've done also is really very focused, very locally here. We worked on together $45,000 for the Boys and Girls Club here in Fullerton to establish a Digital Days program. We are still working on the Coyote Hills money, thing that we talk about every day. The $20 million that we were able to appropriate for Coyote Hills is still there. We're very much going to continue to work on that project to make sure that project gets fulfilled. I know that that's something very important here. So I think that's something that we are going to be working on, during our time here, frankly. Those are some of the there's also the $5 million for the Anaheim Family YMCA, the $2.5 million we helped with the Fox Theater here in Fullerton. I haven't had a chance to see it. The way Sharon talks about it, I feel like I'm very familiar with it. And then also the $25,000 for the Muggenthaler. I can't even pronounce it, I apologize. Muggenthaler irrigation system, as well as the $5 million for the Veterans Memorial Cemetery. These are just some of the things we've been able to work on together to really bring back to Fullerton. And that's really what we try to focus on. We really want to make sure that the budget isn't, most of the money goes to all the big things, which is your K through 12 school. That's about half of it.
Illegals.
About $14 billion goes to higher education, which is CSU Fullerton, OCC, North OCC here. All the different community colleges, all the UCs, that's about $14 billion. So that's more than half the budget. Then we have about 25% of the budget goes into health care, health and human services. That piece is very much a very, very critical component. So then after all that's done, we obviously want to hear what the community wants, what the community needs. Really, are there different projects that have been kind of long-standing in the community that really need some attention from the state? Those are things that we constantly are kind of working on. So for example, in my community, last year, the big call was really around homelessness and navigation centers. That's really what my folks in San Francisco wanted. So that's something that we were able to really assist with and really help with. So that's been a very critical piece. Sharon asked me to kind of talk about the budget process a little bit. The budget process, the budget is $132 billion in terms of the general fund. It's $200 billion once you add in all the special funds and everything that comes from the feds. Well, that sounds like a lot of money. I mean, we're a state of 40 million people. So once you start dividing it up by all the people and all the needs and everything that we are really fighting for, whether it's education, whether it's for health care, whether it's for parks and open space, it actually goes very, very, very quickly. So what we end up doing in terms of just a process, in terms of, as you want to know, this is the time of year in the fall where we are back in our communities, really, really, frankly, reconnecting with our communities, because we're back and forth quite a bit during the earlier part of the year. This is the time where if you have issues or areas of interest that you definitely want to talk to Sharon about, you want to talk to her team about, make sure that they're on her team's radar, and just talk about what the needs are. I always say it's really, the earlier you can come, the better, because some issues are very easy and are very clean. Other issues require work and require more of a collaborative process and require much more time and effort to really work together. Once we go into January, the governor, and we're gonna have a new governor coming in this year, so it's gonna be very interesting.
John Cox,
The governor
please.
is gonna be announcing the initial proposal for the budget. And the governor's budget is very interesting because the governor just gets to propose something. The legislature is actually the one that has to appropriate.
That's right.
So it's actually just an idea. So the governor proposes something in January. We start going into hearings February all the way till May. And we have 5 different subcommittees in the Assembly where we cover different issue areas, whether it's health and human services, education, natural resources and parks and transportation, general government, which is kind of where you have your tax agencies, where you have, your Secretary of State, all your elected officials, the Insurance Commissioner, Attorney General, all that goes into general government. Then we have public safety, which is all your law enforcement, state law enforcement, which is primarily CHP, as well as your court system. So those are the 5 big buckets. We will sit and we will do hours and hours and hours of hearings. If you've ever been into like a legislative hearing, many of them go quite fast because the bills, you can only present maybe for like a minute or two and then you're done and you have your pro and con and we're done with the bills because usually we have so many bills at one particular time. Budget, we'll talk about, we'll talk about economic development in community colleges for hours. And we'll sit there and really debate all the merits of that. And
Well,
really discuss it. So
I give
is
for him,
so
so I want to ask him something.
It is really, really important. And we go through that deliberative process all
I'm
the
just raising my
way
hand.
through May, at which point the governor proposes a May revision. So the governor will say, hey, based on everything that I put the legislature talked about, everything that we've been talking about, here's my May revision. We will go through and present our versions of the budget, meaning the Assembly version and the Senate version at the end of May. And then at the beginning of June, we go into a committee called the Budget Conference Committee, where we actually will settle up all the differences. So everything that's kind of the same, we kind of say, okay, this is what we agree on. What's different is we, with the 3 parties, will get together and negotiate the differences. And actually, we come out by the, right before June 15th, we have to come out 3 days in advance. We have a 3-day print rule where if it's not in print for 3 days, we can't vote on it. And so therefore, by the time the 12th rolls around, we actually absolutely have to have a budget in print that we vote on the 15th. And so that sort of gives you a sense of what the process is. Sharon, like all my other colleagues, all our other colleagues, really work very, very hard to make sure that your interests are really well represented in that process, whether it is K-12, whether it's higher ed, whether it's healthcare, health and human services. You'd be quite surprised. Everybody fairly consistently cares primarily about most of the same things within the budget process, right? It's just because education is so paramount, it's such a foundation, and that's really what we've been really trying to focus on. For decades, we had a budget that was in constant deficit. It's a constant deficit. So every year we were trying to figure out what to cut. Every year we were trying to figure out how to tighten this or tighten that. And we finally made some systematic changes with the help of the voters. And with that, we've been able to actually have a budget that is much more fiscally sound. But we're also doing, I think, fiscally responsible things too. We asked the voters to pass a rainy day fund. It's something that we've had in San Francisco for quite a while. All a rainy day fund is just a savings account. I mean, if you ever go to any financial workshop, do they ever tell you don't save money?
Right.
That's all they talk about, right? Telling you how to save money. And for the longest time, the state never saved any money. Just from a policy point of view, it's almost like whatever you had is whatever you spent. Well, that was great in good years. You had one downturn, boy, it was done. So we actually now have a rainy day fund. The rainy day fund is supposed to be 10%. A full rainy day fund is 10% of our general fund. So I told you our general fund is about $132 billion. Our rainy day fund is at $13.2, $13.3 billion. On top of that, we have additional reserve because we said that's not far enough because we actually had to do $20 billion of cuts right before we got up there in 2012 and in 2008, 2010. Huge devastating budget cuts where we had to cut everything that we really care about. Social safety net programs, schools, UC, CSU, community colleges, all took huge amounts of cuts. So we actually put another $3 billion. So we have $16 billion in reserve right now. The speaker talks about this. He might have talked about it when he was here last time. But our reserve is larger than the budgets of 33 different states. Right?
Big budget.
Because we actually are a large state. We have a large number of people, and we have a large economy. Right? We're not trying to compete with Mississippi or Alabama and we're not trying to go that direction. They're trying to come to our direction. Right? They're trying to emulate us. They're trying to grow like us, and how do we get our economy? So let me just stop there and just say
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming up on an early Friday morning and joining us and being part of this breakfast club. And we'll turn it back over to Sharon and we can see our search process.